You're listening to Viking Radio, coming to you from Dream Street Studios at Del Mar College.
Hello, I'm your host, Dr. Natalie Chapa. Gabe, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I just want to, formally welcome you to Del Mar College. We've got Mr. Gabe Guerra here with us. He's the CEO of Kleberg Bank, but he also serves as the chairman of the Port of Corpus Christi for the Port Commission. And then we've got Dr. Mark Escamilla, our president of Del Mar College for 18 years.
Coming up, completing 18 years, starting my 19th year this fall.
Wow. Yep. Already?
Yep, I'm that old.
It's phenomenal, Mark. That's awesome.
No comment.
That's just making me feel old.
Well, and I know that y'all have been friends for a really long time.
Yes.
You're both Corpus boys.
That's right. Decide boomerangs.
Well, boomerangs, raised on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
To kick us off, can you talk a little bit about that? Because both of you, I've seen that in your leadership.
Yeah.
And I think there's a trust there that people see. But coming from you, what does that mean to you?
I grew up on the west side of Corpus Christi, Oak Park, Driscoll, and Miller High School.
Once a buck.
Once a buck, always a buck. So it's great to be able to look back in the early days. I know Mark and I have talked about it, and to be able to see how that's helped really define and grow who I am. It's not simply, it's one part of the whole, and what we think and how we think. And so I'm extremely blessed to have had the opportunity that I had to get to leave, like Mark. I know we both spent some time in Austin, Hook 'em Horns. We'll say that for all our Aggie friends out there. Hook 'em Horns. So to have that time, I left for 15 years and had the opportunity to come back. And so I am extremely blessed. I have a lovely wife, Lisa, and my two daughters, Lauren, Olivia, and Gabriela. Lauren just finished up her master's at UT Health.
She did. I saw
and
that.
graduated.
Congratulations.
UT, she's a Longhorn. There are a few of us
Hook 'em
still.
Horns.
And Gabby's just finished up her sophomore year at Trinity in San Antonio. So my kids have it much better than I ever did.
We've talked.
Mark and I talk about that all
We
the
were
time.
talking about that earlier. Like, they have no idea. They have no idea.
No clue.
But looking back, so think about when you were growing up here. Did you know what a port commissioner was? Or did you ever, or the president of Del Mar College? It's like you have come so far, right, from where you grew up and what is out here in terms of leadership. Who is actually out here making those big decisions?
Yeah, who I did know about was Dr. Hector P. Garcia. That's who we knew about because that's who afforded his time for us.
And he was delivering babies and his sister.
Their whole family was taking care of all the families and so forth. So in terms of the kind of the leadership that was out there, that's who I knew. Of course, I do remember Mayor Luby, Jason Luby. I mean, a few others from the 70s and 80s, and certainly Mayor Turner and a few others, a few other notables as well. But what Gabe is talking about, Chairman Guerra is talking about, is now turning back and doing everything we can to make sure that people know it's not us. It's not an ego thing. It's the roles we hold and the impact we can have on you if you're willing to listen, and sharing that with the families is critical. To your point, because if we don't do that while we're in these roles, we don't know who else may or may not, but we're certainly going to take that.
Somebody's going to make the decision either way.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you just never know when you have the next Mark Escamilla. It might be that young kid who's out in our community that you can mentor and develop and give vision, and the same thing that Mark talked with Dr. Garcia. So I think the idea here is how do we inspire the next generation of leaders in our community. I'm extremely proud. I have nothing negative to say about my upbringing. I had two parents, great mom and dad, and large family.
Yep.
How many brothers and sisters do you
We were
have?
a family of 8, 4 boys and 4 girls. No one has more than 3 kids, so go figure. I would kid my mother. I'll throw this in there because it's funny. I said, Mom, you babied the oldest, Eli, and my youngest brother, Adam. And it's a true statement, but they'll deny it. And I said, and I was asking her a question. She says, I didn't baby anyone. She says, I had 8 kids. I didn't have time for any of you.
There's no time.
Anyway.
So my mom always says you need to have one for the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. She had 3.
3?
And then her sister had 12, and she's like, well, she did the rosary.
That's awesome. We had 5. I was number 4 of 5, and we talk about that all the time, and how my role was to hide out and stay out of trouble, and
That's right.
and duck the politics of the families. But those family dynamics, again, South Texas families and so forth. I didn't go to West Side schools per se, other than South Park, and that wasn't really, those are the ABC streets and so forth, but raised on Morgan Avenue and Pine Street and Marguerite Streets with my grandparents, and spending all the time on Milo Street. My gente, my people, if you will, my tribe was very much in those neighborhoods and so forth. But I was on the corner of the border, and I ended up at Carroll High School. I struggled in high school. I didn't know. It was like you felt it. It was palpable, the difference in the cultures and so forth. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that, while we're talking and so forth, is our kids never had to do the things we did and so forth. And the challenge for parents, like I was just say, that have gone on and taken that next step in their family's trajectories and taking that next step, the challenge is then to make sure, do everything we can to get our kids to that next step.
Right.
That is easier said than done.
It is, because they're so different.
Yeah.
Their experience is so different.
Oh yeah, they didn't crawl under the cars and do all the things and drive the trucks and on the construction sites. And coincidentally, Gabe's dad and my parents went to Miller High School together back in the 50s. And so
when
they
did
know each other.
When did they graduate? 50?
50s, 50. My dad was 50, 57, 58, I think. And Mom was 61.
Okay.
60, because I remember Miller won state that year. I remember. They may have been 61.
So late.
But they all were in that.
Yes.
Okay.
They knew each other anyway. So once Eli, right?
Yeah.
Eli, your dad. He's like
Your dad is Eli. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
So
anyway, but growing up here, and then again bringing it all back and coming back to the communities. You talked about inspiring those next generations, Gabe, and the importance of that sort of thing. I routinely, it's a local joke for me around here that I pull my keys out. And whenever the kids say, I'm going to get your job, Mr. Escamilla, I'm going to do this, I'm like, well, here are the keys. You can start on Monday. And they laugh.
To that.
And then I said, go. Don't think you can't. They said, well, did you always want to be the president of Del Mar College? I was like, no. I had no clue.
Yeah.
This career chose me. This path, this mission chose me. And I even talked about that at Veterans High School at the Honors Assembly this past week. Some of the CCISD administrators were there, and I was talking to these kids about choosing their mission, and sometimes it chooses you. And I pointed out some of the administrators from CCISD, and I said, hey, it chooses you sometimes, doesn't it? And they all looked, and then, you get called.
Do you feel that there was sometimes anyone in your family, it's like, what's this guy doing? No?
For me? No, I think my family, we're all very close and extremely competitive at times. I think we still, unlike most families that say, my dad had an old line, Mark knows this, I'd share, we'd come from college and everyone would come together, and you figure that family that large, and my dad had a line, and he'd say, and I use it today, he says, I'm not trying to run you guys off, but what time are you guys leaving? So that's my dad right there. So I say that, my brothers and sisters, when they say it's time to go, Gabe's usually washing dishes or doing cleaning counters.
You're a little,
yes, I love you guys, but
not that much.
Yeah. No, I think there's certainly, I think there's a tremendous amount of love and support, competitiveness. Back in those days, Mark, we didn't grow up with phones, and we didn't have. We had. You go outside, and in my family, Atari was not an option. We didn't have those luxuries to be able to afford. So I think that's why I probably don't like to play video games.
Same way.
So I think it's hard for me to look through Facebook. It's a difficult. Feels like work. I mean, when you grew up and you were outside, you were playing with the neighbors. I can still name all the neighbors, the kids, the street football, just the different things you do. These kids today, they have much different. The influence is real, And so the life was very different. And I think they've got more challenges because they have more distractions. They don't have what we had, which is really just get out and get to know each other. And, kids, I find out sometimes they communicate by means of their social media. They don't know how to pick up the phone and have a conversation.
It's
and that's
kind
hard.
of interesting to hear now schools wanting to back off on technology when things like AI and are ramping up, and it's still very important. And we hear that from our industry partners, that they don't want people coming in not knowing, right, how to use technology. But there's some challenges socially that are
Tremendous.
That's coming out.
I mean, you guys probably see it from an education standpoint.
It's huge. It's a really big sea change that we haven't even begun to realize. I'm spending a lot of time on that. I think for another show, a full show, another time that we can dive into the impact of AI. But I would just say from a historical standpoint, this is like, do you remember the dial-up for AOL? Mm-hmm. Okay,
You've got
that time.
You've got mail.
You've got mail. Telling you, got.
I still have an AOL account, by the way.
No.
Yeah, I've got a friend that does the dial-up noise. It says, "Really?"
I have a friend that does too. But so we're on the cusp of a sea change, and that's what all these data centers are about and everything else. But the dial-up tone is kind of a marker in time that I think represents where we are today. Today's version of it is called Facebook and other things like
well
that.
said.
And I think today is that point, another marker in time, and what is about to happen. I was telling somebody yesterday, I said, look, we've got to create, through research and development, we've got to create a scenario for our students' experience here at the college that we're going to laugh at in 10 years. Mm-hmm. The trick about it is we don't know what the scenario is for today. Think about it. Mm-hmm. So for whatever we create today has got to evolve and get ready to be something laughable in 10 short years from now. Think about that. That's really hard to conceive of, but that's how you stay on the cutting edge for your students.
I've used the joke when I remember Snapchat was it. Now kids have TikTok, right?
Right.
So I said when we were kids, it was chat. It was chat in the cafeteria, chat before school, chat. Then it was Snapchat. Now it's AI, and
It is. I heard one kid told me the other day that they sent a note in class. I'm like, y'all still do that? That's all we did. Sending notes back and forth. Do you like me? Yes, no, maybe.
Check yes or no.
So the idea there is just communication, and the key is, how important is communication today?
It's everything.
And so you think about that, you think about critical thinking, you think about all those things. And so I think, Mark, I know we talked about this. I find myself having a lot of conversations with my kids just on saying, I tell the kids, tell me a little bit about your conversations with your friends. Tell me about the conversation around politics. Mm-hmm. Tell me about, just to understand, what are kids thinking about
what are
today?
they thinking about?
I don't know. I think education's gotten more challenging.
It is, and I gather kids around the little island around the kitchen, and I put out I make sure they have plenty of drinks and snacks, and like all the parents do, to gather their kids around, and I try to engage them in conversations about what's going on in the world and what do they really understand, mm-hmm. and then you can really get a sense of where they're deriving their data and information from. It's interesting. I absolutely love doing that.
I kind of want to shift a little bit as we are talking about younger people, though, because we started off with talking about leadership here in the community, and both of y'all boomeranging, right, coming back in your kind of growth. We've got a lot of challenges going on right now in the city, but there's also been a lot of positivity about needing to continue. We'll be right back.
This is where you want to be, to dream, to grow, to graduate and succeed. This is Oso Creek campus at Del Mar College, home to core classes and signature programs with cutting-edge labs and state-of-the-art facilities. This is a place of innovation, transformation, and support. This is your time, your future. This is where you belong. Learn more at dmcdreams.com.
Again, we've got Mr. Gabe Guerra with us from Kleberg Bank and the Port of Corpus Christi, and Dr. Mark Escamilla from Del Mar College with us here today. Let's talk a little bit about that in terms of what you're seeing, what you're hoping. Again, we know we've got to continue, right? We've got to continue to be positive. We have to keep moving forward with the city, regardless of our current challenges.
So Mark's, you heard me say this, and certainly you have too, Natalie. I think it's important to understand, really to break down the economic environment for our region and talk about our future. And I think Del Mar is a big part of that story. So let's talk about positive. I think we look at $65 billion of investment that we've been talking about for years. And I'm going to tell you, there are companies that are having conversations with us at the port. I was there less than a month ago talking to a few companies. One included Cheniere, who continues to invest in this community in big ways.
Big
and
supporter
those
of Del Mar.
Big supporters of Del Mar. And you look at that. There's several companies now. Not sure I can mention their names. I'll just say the dollars, the capital investments in the billions, and there's some challenges, including a need for water. And the reality is we will solve that problem. We have a short-term need and we have a long-term need. And I was speaking to a group of realtors earlier this week, and there was a lot of conversation inclusive to, well, does an industry need to pay more for this? And I think it's important for people to understand that industry is a big reason, part of our economic story. And I think we can break that down. So why are we here today? Those companies would not have come if we didn't have the workforce and the student and the population. You heard that from the early days of GCGV, ExxonMobil, SABIC. And I just still remember one of the venture executives who was speaking about the labor force. We have land, we had water, we're going to solve our water problem, and we have power, and we have roads, and we have transportation. But that deep water port is exactly why they're here, and that infrastructure that's been built, those 3 oil pipelines, the natural gas component. If you look at Cheniere, and you look at all the pieces of why those global companies whose products are going abroad, we are the number one exporter of American energy. That's why the president was here in February. We're number 2 in LNG. We have a chemical complex. We have an oil and gas complex. That LNG plant that is now doubled in output. It went from a ship every other day to 1 ship every day, goes to Europe, essentially, and other parts of the world. And why are they here? Because they have the student population. And one of the things I just still remember is, one, they love all our universities and our colleges, but Del Mar stands out. Because if you look at the industrial complex, Del Mar is a big part of that. If not for Del Mar, we could not have pivoted and created the type of curriculum that these kids needed to succeed. And these companies are saying, I was talking to Jason with Tesla the other day at a workforce event, and he will say, if not for Del Mar putting together the best program, he said, I've been all over the world, and I have not seen the type of talent and kids that have had the type of skill set and training they have at Del Mar College. And you can bring them on your show and talk about that. My point to that is, so we've got the young labor force that can be trained and has been trained. We have the land and availability of land. We've got a deep water port. And so we have all this infrastructure and investment. So let's think beyond that. In mid 2022, 23, people don't know that Corpus Christi and the region outpaced the state and the nation and job growth. Yes. And it's because of that investment and because of those dollars. So in the 40s, when the refiners got here and others who've been here for decades, they've helped develop the infrastructure for our community. They've paid into the water and everything else. We've been in a 5-year severe drought. Everyone's impacted. So it's not just the neighbors' problems, it's everyone's problem. Industry has to come to the table. Our city has to come to the table. The port, our universities, our colleges, our businesses, they got to say, what can we do to solve this problem together? It's not them. It's not me. It's not I. It's what are we going to do to address the issues? Because we got to think win-win for this community. Because if we don't, the opposite of that will happen, and we'll contract, and we'll lose the jobs, and we'll begin to lose those payers that pay into the system that help support the tax base and everything in this community. I can go on and on and on about that. But I just want to take that opportunity to commend you, Mark, and the entire staff and the leadership of Del Mar because there is not a year, there's not a time where Del Mar's name doesn't come up in part of the story of why we've been successful in this community.
18 years, right? You've been here at the college, and probably 16, 17 years ago, I've heard this so many times, the story of him bringing in Lenora Keys, right? And sitting down and saying, I need you to go and I need you to listen. And that is so hard to do, right? Because there were so many things, and Lenora will talk about that she did not get great feedback at the time. There was a lot of what was missing, and they stepped in and they created a team. We have a phenomenal team that works with our industry partners. And that's what you see. That's, so we have now colleges coming on saying, oh, we want to start these programs.
You're
Where
best
do we
in class.
begin? We started 16 years ago. And so that was visionary, and we're very blessed.
You're the model, best in class.
We appreciate all the kind words and so forth. And I must say that, yes, bringing on, Vice President Keys and all the roles that she served over her 40-plus year career at the college really was about listening to the audience, being relevant for the sake of our students, understanding the times where we weren't relevant, where
Right.
I hate to say we were irrelevant, but we were less relevant.
Right.
As in terms of offering those things. And I remember when the $1 billion in investment came, when TPCO came.
Everyone was so excited.
Significant.
We're on our
was.
way. $1
Yeah,
billion.
$1 billion.
You were wearing a hard hat. I remember that.
And then we hit 50.
And then you hit 50, and now
And now?
65 and 70 plus and so forth. And so the thing is, back then what we did was we looked 10 years down, we looked 15 and 20 years down, and people thought we were crazy. Because even internally, I was looking at the faculty and staff. I said, look, we've got it. Whatever we do here has to impact us 50 years from now. They're like, rookie, you'll be lucky to be here 3 to 5 yourself, is really what the sentiment was. And my good friends told me that that's what they were thinking.
Well, that was a track record before you, right?
Right, yes. He broke it. He broke
it pretty much.
new record.
But the opportunity was. So now in 2026, what's going to happen in 2036? 2041, 2045, and so forth. This is where, again, the revolution that's upon us called AI, the foundation that is just being poured, is something that we have to get ahead of. And so another day, another time, I want to talk about how that'll impact the curriculum. But I want you all to know that we're already having talks about what's going to happen in the next 10 or 15 years for our students and the workforce.
When people come together with different ideas, it's not winning or you or I, it's how we. And so the fourth habit says think, win, win. And the fifth habit is first seek to understand and then seek to be understood. I think at times rhetoric and situations and emotions get in the way, and sometimes we want to be heard. But sometimes it's just best to listen and then let others listen to you and say, I hear you. Acknowledging that, but say, let me help you understand where I'm coming from. I think we need to put placards around this entire city and our universities and our businesses and say, Corpus, think, win, win. So how do we get in a room and do exactly what you said, Mark? Think about 10, 15 years from now and say, okay, we're going to solve this water problem. What's next? Because what people are not talking about now is there are companies trying to come in here now. What are you going to do to solve your short-term problem, and what's the long-term problem, and how is industry and others, how are you going to diversify your economy? And I can tell you the port's doing that now, because you don't have a choice. We're all in here for the same thing. How do we continue to evolve this community? But we got to go in there and we got to think win-win. If we'll just simply start by saying think win-win. So, where do we go from there?
Winning and winning with under that situation, with being the chairman of the largest, I believe the single largest, or collectively the largest economic driver of this area, is a great responsibility. And so this kind of philosophy is incredible to watch. So proud of your leadership there, and stepping up and stepping in and dealing with all the opportunities to be a chairman. The world is looking to Corpus Christi.
Absolutely.
If there's so many ways we can slice and dice that, but Dr. Natalie and I were talking about that before you came in. It's a tremendous responsibility, and so you leading that it gives me not only great pride but great confidence that you lead with those values. Not only those values, those family values, those values as an Eagle Scout, and all of your other accomplishments out there. And then you lead a great institution like Kleberg. It's just awesome to watch. I will tell you that. You were talking about that too, Dr. Natalie.
It is, and I think for our young leaders out there, let's just give it a number. The under 40, right, leaders. It's like, they're in a very unique time and place. I think we have seen a lot of things, just even 10, 15 years older. We've seen a lot more things that have come through. This generation is very resilient, but I think if as Gen Xers, as we were talking about earlier, if we can impart something to them, because we need their leadership now. We've got, Zach Suarez at Coastal Bend College. He's a millennial. We were talking about him earlier,
He's a pup.
He's a pup.
He's 40 years old. Happy birthday, Dr. Zach. He just had a birthday.
I just met him. He seems like a really great guy.
Stay tuned. We'll bring you.
That's a great example, right? They grew up in a different time.
It is a different time.
They're leaders here now. And I think being able to hear from our leadership here who's willing to share
I
and
think
mentor.
I think it's our obligation. I feel it's our obligation as an Xer, certainly, but I think just anyone who has any kind of level of leadership, it's our obligation to mentor and at the very least share the information you have.
It's the old Luke biblical quote: "To whom much is given, much is expected."
That's right.
I think we have an obligation. It's called stewardship, and I think that we've got to be great stewards. Look, I've never thought it was about me. Life was too simple to think any otherwise. You had to work to achieve, and to get where I came from, and to achieve where I'm at came with hard work and grit and dedication and commitment. So I don't take that any other way. I tell my kids, be respectful of everyone. It doesn't mean, in this world, it means we all have different opportunities that are presented, and some of us are more blessed, and the opportunities that come and the great mentors come along the way. We talk about mentors a lot, so you've got to seize that opportunity. But being good stewards, as Mark said, I think is another thing. And the when you go to Covey, going to 4 or 5. Think win-win. First, seek to understand, then seek to be understood. The 4th, 5th, the 6th is synergize.
Yeah.
So, synergy of stewards comes in. I can call Mark any time of the day or night, weekends, and it's how do we get this? Hey, do I need your help? It's that. You want that. The fundamental, most important thing of any key relationship, and I say this to my team and everyone else that listens, is trust. Yes. And a foundation of trust with your community or anything else. Look, perfection doesn't exist.
Right.
We have problems now. Admit it. Perfection doesn't exist. We have a problem with water. Now, some could argue about decision points and everything else. Get past that. Corpus our region has way too much to offer. And if you think about all the natural benefits that come with this economic engine, comes the opportunity to say, how are we going to leave it better than we found it? And that's the stewardship we're talking about.
I love that, and thank you for that. And I can say, being part of this community now for 18 years myself, it really is a blessing to have mentors in the community, like both of you, in my life that I look up to, and I appreciate your time today.
It's fun. I could talk. I sit here and chat with you guys
all
for
day.
another. Yeah.
We didn't even get into the football season, but thank you so much.
Hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em horns.
Aggie friends.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to visit.
This is Viking Radio. This show is a production of Del Mar College.